Sylvia. Okay. Sylvia, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So just to let us know when to start.
Yes, I think we can start.
Okay, great. Okay. So welcome everyone, the final main session of ALife 2022. So we have 4 talks in this session. The first presenters are the Kira Breithaupt and Abe Light. This is going to be a recorded talk. So please go ahead, Sylvia.
Hello, my name is Kira Breithaupt and my co-author is Abe Late. The name of our paper is Analogical Comparison of Circuits Generating a Multiply Realizable Walking Behavior. So my interests actually come more from the field of analogy making. That is, how different stories, experiences, or phenomena more generally can be understood as being the same beneath the surface. Recently, I've been interested in how 2 people can share an experience when how that experience gets realized by each person is very different. Similarly, when we are told about an experience we haven't had, we are somehow able to know what it would be like despite us not having lived it out for ourselves. It was these sorts of questions on the multiple realizability of experience that brought me here. Through conversations with Abe, I realized that the ALife field could be the ideal place to investigate shared experience in common behavior. Just as the multiple realization of ideas is commonly facilitated by communication, we can also look to behavior to further understand the multiple realizability of experience. Our contributions are threefold. We propose our existing model of analogical comparison, NetMatch, as a promising tool for assessing the similarity between the experience that underlies behavior. Next, we introduce a novel functional trace metric intended to extract the experience of an agent generating a behavior. Finally, we apply the functional traces of small circuits generating a multiply realizable single-legged walking behavior to the NetMatch engine in order to uncover how circuits of different types and sizes still reliably generate the same behavior. The combined product of our contribution serves as a successful replication of the dynamics classes devised by Beer et al. In their original 1999 paper. In the following minutes, I'm going to go through these topics backwards, starting with the single-legged walking behavior. The single-legged walking behavior is broken into 4 stages. The backswing stage describes the state in which the agent's leg is planted on the ground and the body is being dragged forwards. Next comes the transition between backswing and foreswing, in which the backswing comes to a resolution and the leg lifts. The foreswing stage describes the tractionless leg being swung backwards. T2, the second transition, describes the return to backswing, also called stance, in which the leg is pressed to the ground. Beer et al. Showed that small circuit agents can generate the single-legged walking behavior in several distinct ways. In the minimal 3-neuron case, there are 2 types of solutions, the foreswing switch class and the backswing switch class, their names alluding to which of the 3 motor neurons acts as a timer to trigger the transition between stages. In the 4-neuron case, the interneuron invariably serves as the timer. Here, the class is based on which foot stage, up or down, the interneuron becomes active during. To demonstrate how the different types of switch classes work, let's briefly take a look at the neural activities and rates of change of neural activities of 4 different circuits generating the legged walking behavior. Here, the backswing neuron is playing a timing role, and its switch is what's causing the rest of the transition to happen. We can see this because the backswing neuron's switch stage in orange precedes the other 2 neuron switch states in row C. Now, in this case, the foreswing neuron is playing the role of the timer, and its switch is what's causing the rest of the transition to happen. We can tell both because the green line corresponding to the rate of change of the neural activity of the front switch neuron is the first to become active, as well as because of the increase in neural activity shown in the column marked FS during the backswing stage. The 4-neuron case becomes even more interesting. Here, as with all 4-neuron circuits generating the single-legged walking behavior, the interneuron is playing the timing role. What matters in distinguishing between a swing switch type and a stance switch type is the stage we're in as we observe the interneuron first becoming positively active. Here, we observe a swing switch circuit as the interneuron turns on during the four-swing stage. Here we see the other class of four-neuron circuit, the stance switch neuron. In this case, the timer neuron becomes active during the stance stage, also known as backswing. Having now gone through the four different types of circuit classes for this behavior, let's now take a look at how we can transform the circuit's patterns of neural activities into a form that the analogy engine can make sense of. Alright, now we can talk about the functional trace metric, which aims to capture which neurons are active while others are changing, in the spirit of Hebbian learning. Functional traces serve the purpose of transforming patterns of neural activity into the form that inputs into NetMatch take, a sequence of directed weighted networks. We'd like to stress this metric does not rely on any knowledge of the inner workings of neural circuits beyond each neuron's instantaneous activation. We're using this functional trace to get a sense of what the experience of the agent is during its behavior. And this is just one way of capturing the internal dynamics of the system. But the reason that we're not using an existing neuroscience measure, such as correlation, is because the functional trace is directed. In order to approximate which neurons cause others to fire, we ask which neurons are active when other neurons change their state. This isn't a direct measure of whether neurons are causing the others to change, but it is a measure of whether the neurons could have been the ones causing the others to change. So by integrating this measure over the period of the stage, we get a trace of directed correlations between different neurons' activations and rates of change. NetMatch is a narrative-based algorithm. It operates on abstract encodings of sequences of events. Thus, the temporal stages of the single-legged walking behavior serves as a natural application to the model, which takes a pair of sequences of directed weighted networks as inputs and proceeds to compute a score of analogical similarity. An important point to make about NetMatch is that the actual identity of nodes in the sequences of networks doesn't matter. Instead, the emphasis is put on the relationships between the nodes. This is because deep analogy lies in the more abstract relative relationships between concrete components, rather than in the concrete components themselves. This feature of the algorithm also allows us to be flexible between different domains, since all sorts of data can easily be represented as or naturally comes in the form of directed weighted networks. The ideal analogy is one in which the identities of nodes between narratives are very different from each other on the surface, but in which there is a similarity between the transformation that relates the networks of one sequence to all the other networks of the same sequence to the transformation that does so for the other sequence. This would be a good time to pause the video, so my co-author Abe can step in.
Abe, would you like? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, yes.
Our first experiment was a simple
if we could go
validation of the
just a
algorithm.
moment. Thank you. I don't know if she mentioned this, but Kira is currently recovering from COVID. I hope that everyone will join me in welcoming her a very smooth recovery. I wanted to briefly talk about this example of an analogy that is just maybe if you hit the back button, the left button on your keyboard, it'll take you back 5 seconds. Thank you so much. Yes, so here we have an example of an analogy, and what I want to draw your attention to is that at each stage, we found an alignment between the networks that roughly makes the, when we follow this alignment, which you can see using the fill colors of the different nodes, makes the arrows agree with each other, more or less. For example, in the first slide, we see that FT was active while BS was slightly falling. And on the bottom, we see that FT and BS were both active while int1 was falling. And so as a result, we're able to make that kind of analogy. That kind of alignment. And the fact that that alignment persists throughout all of the stages, that the alignment that's the best at the first stage also works at the other stages, And conversely, the alignment, say, at the final stage also works relatively well at the first three stages. That's what makes this a strong analogy. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia, can you resume the playback? Yeah, thank you.
Our first experiment was a simple validation of the algorithm by looking at individual agents and taking the trace during 2 consecutive cycles of their behavior, then checking how strong the apparent analogy between them is relative to a null model, where the null model is simply a misaligned version of the same behavior. Instead of lining up the backswing stage of one step to the backswing stage of the following step, the null model lines up the backswing with the foreswing stage, or either of the transitions. But for our purposes, the one thing to remember from this slide is that a strong analogy strength for our current application is somewhere between 3 and 4. In some cases, it can be as high as 5. And here come the results. Abe's going to walk us through our findings on analogy strength between pairs of circuits by dynamics class. Now would be a good time to pause the video.
Yep. Okay. Abe again.
Thank you. Yes, so I think that this is a busy figure, but it's a very important figure. And I was really, really excited by the results that we got on this particular experiment. So on this experiment, we took the 4 dynamics classes for 3 and 4 neuron circuits discovered by Beer et al. In their original experiment reporting on the different solutions to this task. And we asked what the analogy strength between different circuits that belong to each of these classes is. For example, on the left column of our figure, we can see the analogies between one FS circuit and another FS switch circuit. On the right-hand side, we can see the analogy between one 4-neuron swing switch circuit and another 4-neuron swing switch circuit. Our first result is relatively general. NetMatch reports strong analogies between some of the neural circuits that perform this behavior, as we can see by sort of just looking at the whole figure here. But there are also some dots that are 0 or even negative, representing anti-analogies between those solutions to the task. This shows that we're able to recognize both some similarities between the diverse solutions to this problem and differences. What's special is that these similarities are concentrated among members of the same solution class. For example, our FSFS, BSBS, STST, which is the third from the right, and SWSW columns are higher than any of the other columns. This shows that the mean analogy strength between members of the same solution class is very high. And finally, we discover strong analogies between the previously reported 3-neuron BS switch and 4-neuron swing switch classes, even though these solution classes are of different sizes. And that column is the 4th from the right. It's by far the highest column of any of the non-within class analogies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sylvia.
Now let's talk about future directions and generalizations. Starting with artificial neuroscience, we see 2 natural generalizations of our work. The first is simply more complex problems in neural circuits, an extension of what we've already done. 2 examples would be 2-legged walking versus 6-legged walking. Another example that takes it a bit further is categorization tasks such as visual categorization versus spatial categorization. Next, we could imagine applying our techniques to multifunctional networks. We could ask questions such as, can one use analogical comparison to detect which behavior a multifunctional circuit is currently generating? And then we ask, would one find stronger analogies between a multifunctional circuit's functional traces during 2 different behaviors, or between its trace in each behavior and that of a single function circuit performing the same behavior? Now let's move on to biological neuroscience, starting with small-scale neural circuits. Can we apply analogical comparison to existing recordings of small subcircuits of the nervous systems of model organisms such as C. elegans? to understand whether the same organism has analogous but not identical neural readings when repeating a behavior, and also whether one can form analogies between the neural traces of two organisms that have engaged in the same behavior. Next, we could imagine applying our techniques to large-scale neural circuits, such as fMRI data from people viewing similar or different scenes, from which functional traces can also be extracted and compared. I'd like to thank everyone who attended this presentation and both of my collaborators, Douglas Hofstadter, Eduardo Izquierdo, and my co-author, Abe Late. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kieran and David. Very nice presentations. Time for questions. We can take a couple. I have multiple questions, but I would be happy to let the audience ask questions first, if any. Okay. So let me start. So this is wonderful, the work. So the two questions. One is technical. So how scalable the net match algorithm is. So it's kind of similar to the graph isomorphism problem, if my understanding is correct. So for example, can you do the same thing for 10 neurons, 20 neurons?
Right. So the net match algorithm is at its heart unfortunately an exponential time algorithm.
Yeah.
That said, it makes use, we generally make use of some sort of community detection algorithm before applying the graph alignment algorithm. That means that you can often get rather lucky. We have had cases where it discovers nice communities, reduces, say, a 15-node network to a 5-node network, and then it's perfectly able to perform the alignment.
Yeah.
So I would not suspect we could scale it up to, say, a 100-neuron circuit.
Yeah. But the using community structure is definitely the meaningful, even from biological viewpoint. Yes. Any other questions? Maybe I can ask one more because I had another question. So if you get multiple circuits that essentially show the same behavior, that is great. But biologically speaking, there should be differences, like how adaptive one circuit is in a different, more like a wild situation, not just walking in the plain surface. Is there any particular plan how to differentiate, currently, analogous circuit in a different context?
Well, one of the things that we're hoping this algorithm can do is reveal structural similarities between, let's suppose that we have an animal that's walking and one of them's walking in one direction, one of them's walking in another direction. There might be some particular analogy that our algorithm would find between those behaviors, and then a different sort of analogy that our algorithm might find if one organism is walking to, say, a tree, and another organism is riding a bicycle to the tree. We would hope to be finding different analogies there. That said, this is very much in our future directions.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Very, very nice work. Okay, next presenter, Theodore, are you here?
Indeed. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, so can everyone see that?
Yep, perfect. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. 1 second. Right, so hello everyone and welcome. Sorry if I will lose my voice halfway through this. I've just come down with COVID. So yeah, apparently I'm not the only one, but yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank my collaborators. So these are all of them on the screen. You might have seen them around some other conferences long before COVID. Hopefully you will see them in the near future if this goes well. And I'll be talking about kind of network diversity, and I'll slightly preface that by saying I will talk about social diversity as well. So yeah, we'll see in a second what that actually means, and safety adoption in AI development. So, okay, why is safety adoption in AI development important? Well, if you talk to anyone from the existential risk community, they will quickly tell you that AI has the potential to completely wipe out humanity. What I'm proposing is perhaps not as serious as that, although we might see that as well. So whether or not AI will lead to existential risk or not, that's kind of a different story altogether. But even to this present day, we have seen AI being misused in lots and lots of different ways. So if you think, for example, about the Cambridge Analytica scandal and Brexit, that's kind of one idea. Then there's lots and lots of other stories about drones that are controlled by AI, and also all of these surveillance mechanisms, right, that are usually driven by AI tools. So for the remainder of this talk, I will talk about risk, but you can, of course, depending on your own predisposition to such ideas, you can consider that as completely existential risk or somewhere in between. And then why social diversity and why network diversity? Well, this is a list of the top 100 AI companies kind of spread in different domains, and this was done by CB Insights. And you can see there's quite a lot of heterogeneity here. So actually, there's not that many AI companies that are involved that actually have feet in different doors, right? For the most part, everyone is highly specific. There are obviously some counter examples of that, and we see like the biggest players usually have a lot of feet in different doors. But for the most part, all of these smaller AI companies are very specific to one tool and one kind of domain. So then we can imagine that there is some form of diversity in the network that we might see. And okay, I'll work a bit about I'll talk a bit about this AI race. And again, apologies, came down with COVID. I wanted to have a pretty animation to explain this, but I'll just go to the payoff matrix. So this is actually a paper done by collaborators that introduced the idea of this AI race dynamic. And by AI race dynamic, we mean this innovation race, right? So different companies are competing with each other to get to some objective first, and we can imagine that objective can be intermediary, or it can be some huge objective at the end, right? Some huge goal. So intermediary benefits could be some optimization to some specific problem, right? Let's say you have natural language processing, and now your intermediate objective could be a new optimization algorithm to improve the performance of your NLP tool. But it could be some massive goal in the future, which we could call general AI, right? It could be this insanely powerful AI that can apply to a broad range of tasks, not necessarily narrow ones. And so what's important here is that we are not certain what it's going to be like. And so we need to model, in this case, we use evolutionary game theory. We need to model ways in which we can account for all of those possibilities. So, okay, this is going to be a repeated game because you have these intermediate kind of races, so intermediate interactions and one big one at the end. And I won't go too deeply in this, but what's important to note here is that if everyone is playing safe, then you pay some cost to ensure that it is safe development. So in other words, you would pay some cost to ensure the tool is aligned, as they call it in the field. And you would share this benefit, right? So basically everyone gets a hand in the cookie jar. Whereas if you're playing unsafe, there are ways in which you can overcome these costs and accelerate your development. So the key assumption here is that if you are playing safe, then you're a bit slower, but safer. And if you are playing unsafe, then you're faster, but riskier. And there's two ways in which this risk is expressed. And that is, first of all, the probability of being found out. So that is basically the probability of being caught and losing your advantage in the race. Or there is this risk probability of some disaster happening, right? So let's say at the end of this general AI race, the guys who have accelerated and ignored all safety standards, well, they've actually created some really malicious AI. And so those are kind of the two, and we can talk at the end about what those assumptions mean. Here we go through kind of exactly what we're studying. So as I said before, because there is a lot of uncertainty, you want to study everything, right? So you want to study the case where AI is really close to the future, very near to the future, or it's very far away in the future, right? Where it might not be in our lifetimes or in our children's lifetimes, right? And you can also study all the different kind of risks of either being found out or this unsafe AI leading to the extinction of humanity, right? And a lot of other things. So that's kind of the beauty of evolutionary game theory, is you can study all of the possibilities, which is very neat in this case because we'd rather avoid having to actually experience it. And now I'll talk a bit about networks. So as you can see here, we have kind of different populations. And yeah, I'll talk a bit about networks. I mentioned before this idea of social diversity. And social diversity in this case is just differences in the network underlying the interactions. So we can imagine someone who is a key player might interact with lots of different individuals, have a lot of accumulated wealth, whereas smaller guys might have only 1 or 2 connections with other specific companies. So this is kind of the basic scale-free network that everyone talks about, which is Barabasi-Albert networks. I will quickly go to how this mechanism works, and then at the end, we'll see an example of what this looks like in practice. So let's imagine for a second that we have these different edges, and at the end of each edge, we have this endpoint colored a certain color. And we put these endpoints in a lottery, and we draw one out. And then whenever a new person comes along, they would connect to this guy, right? So you draw a green color, you connect to this guy. The problem with this type of network is that it doesn't have a lot of clustering. So some people have kind of argued that it's not a very realistic way of depicting scale-free networks because it has no clustering. And sorry, I'm missing a few slides, but hopefully that won't be a massive issue. And one way to create this clustering is this DMS model. It's very similar, but here instead of assigning colors to endpoints, you assign colors to edges. And yeah, that's the missing slide. So you put edges in and you take out an edge, and then now your new person connects to both of those individuals. And what does this look like in practice? This is my missing slide. I got lost in the middle. 1 second. My mouse just stopped working. Yeah, okay. So as you grow the network, you get these nodes that get more and more connections, whereas the newer nodes are very sparsely connected. So you can imagine this is only, I think, 50 nodes or so at the end, or even less. But if you go this for a long enough time, then you have this power law degree distribution where your oldest nodes are extremely well connected to the order of hundreds, and your sparsely connected nodes are very sparsely connected. And so this type of mechanism has been used to explain this preferential attachment rule, and has been found in a lot of realistic networks. So even though we don't know what the networks of technology firms networks actually look like, we can kind of assume this might be a realistic way to model this. And now let's look at some results. Okay, this is a super busy figure, so I'll just walk everyone through it. So on the first column, we have well-mixed populations, so that are completely homogeneous networks. On the second column, we have structured populations, so that's a lattice. And that's one way of adding a bit of network complexity, but no diversity whatsoever. And then the final 2 columns are the scale-free networks. One of them is with a low clustering coefficient, and the other one with a high clustering coefficient. And then top row is this early regime. So this is the case in which AI is very close to the future. And the bottom row is when it's very far in the future. And then the little color there in the heat map is the fraction of unsafe individuals, which might be a good thing or it might be a bad thing. Thing is, we don't know, right? So what those regimes, so those 1, 2, 3 dots, actually show you is this dilemma regions, right? So region 1 is when individuals are safe, and it's also beneficial to be safe. So in other words, it's when everyone should respect safety measures. Region 3 is when the opposite is true. So when individuals are innovative, and it's also good to be innovative. But that region in the middle, that region 2, is actually when individuals are unsafe, but it's better for the collective good for them to be safe. So that obviously is related to this risk probability. So in other words, in that region in the middle, we should expect to see safe, but what we see is actually innovation. And the first initial thing that kind of jumps out at you in this top row is that if you move to heterogeneous networks, so these scale-free networks, then everyone kind of shifts to safety in that region, which is actually really useful without much impact to the other regions. And similarly, we see a similar thing in this late regime where everyone shifts a bit more towards safety. And if we actually make those regions fixed lines, right, and try it out on different networks, you can see it really well in this figure where, for example, on the left, that you have the early regime, and on the right, you have the late regime. And then this region 3, everyone is innovative when they should be. Region 1, everyone is safe when they should be. But in this region 2, this scale-free network, so that's the red and the yellow lines, are much safer than their homogeneous counterparts, which is really good news. And then in the late regime, we actually see an increase in innovation, which is also a good thing. So here in this particular figure, we should expect to see more innovation if the risk probability is low, but we see none, whereas scale-free networks actually give us a bit of that. And then I'll talk a bit about hubs. I'm running a bit short on time, so I'll just very quickly go through this. If you actually classify individuals based on their degree, so for example, you could have high degree, those are influential individuals, medium degree, those are kind of averagely connected, and then low degree are very sparsely connected individuals, then you can plot out their behavior. And what we do here is we actually introduce safety zealots in the network. So for example, we might introduce from 0 to 100 nodes of the most well-connected individuals and see how that affects things. And in this case, these safety zealots never change their behavior, they're always safe. And so we just force their behavior, basically. It's like, imagine a world in which we're regulating these very well-connected players. And what you see is that as these guys, these very well-influential nodes shift to safety, they force everyone else to safety as well. So you see this very sharp reduction in innovation in these dilemma regions without negatively affecting the others. And so one other way to show this is if we show it in different networks. So if you can expect in a homogeneous network, the more of these safety zealots we introduce, it's just going to be a very linear reduction in innovation. Right? So if you introduce 10 players who are safe, well, you're just going to have a reduction by 10 in the overall fraction. Right? It's nothing special. But when you have social diversity in the form of heterogeneous networks, then you see a massive decrease in innovation just because those hubs are forcing other players to follow suit. So very quick conclusions. First of all, social diversity moderates the need for AI regulation, which is good news. Now, this doesn't mean we're actually in this regime of social diversity, but if we can promote this type of behavior, that could be good for AI regulation. And then hubs reduce the viability of unsafe development. And if you're really interested in this, we can have a short discussion at the end about why exactly this happens. And then finally, a small minority, that's a typo, of highly connected individuals can help mitigate race tensions on the uncertainty. So that the important thing here is that it's a very uncertain domain. So it's really promising that these race tensions are mitigated without negatively impacting innovation. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for your attention and happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very nice talk. So time for questions. So question for Theodore, anyone?
1 second, my mouse just lost that in.
Okay. Let me start asking the one basic clarification question.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
of course.
Could you explain again, so how the safe strategy can survive when hubs adopt the safe strategy? So they are playing games with lots of unsafe, like a cooperator and defector in the traditional sense,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
what is the mechanism for the safe or cooperative behavior to remain,
Right.
viable?
So Yeah, indeed. So actually, one thing I didn't mention is we see this in classic prisonized dilemma as well. But the way it works is if we look at the payoffs, we can actually get an idea. So the key thing here is that safe players share the benefit. So actually, when these hubs have a lot of connections, it's very not risky for them, right? Because they're always sharing the benefit. And so the more individuals they collaborate with, it's just because they're so well connected, usually they're also the ones being imitated. So if you can imagine they interact with 50 individuals and they're sharing the benefits with these 50 individuals, well, those 50 other individuals are only sharing the benefit once. And so it actually pays much well to be safe in a group than it pays to be unsafe in a group. Whereas when individuals are playing unsafe, the more they interact with these others, the more likely they are to be found out or to reach this disaster probability. Right? So if they're all unsafe, they're all trying to one-up one another, if that makes sense. They're all trying to get there first. And so that also amplifies the risk significantly.
So
go
ahead.
And you also see this with prisoner's dilemma. So if you put the prisoner's dilemma on these scale-free networks, you see a similar thing where hubs cooperate very well together and it's sustainable. Whereas if you have lots of defection in hubs, it's not sustainable at all. Right. So they might do well for 1 or 2 rounds, but then collapse very quickly.
Right. So thank you. That actually makes sense. So what happens if the collaboration links are actually costly, which might be the case in the actual real, AI IT businesses, right? You don't want to maintain million projects, right?
Yeah, that's true. And we actually test this out as well. And what happens if you, for example, normalize payoffs depending on the number of links, then you see a massive decrease in this sort of dynamics. You still see some effect, but not as stark, if that makes sense. So that's a really good point. If links are very costly, then you see a massive reduction in these synergistic effects.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. We can take maybe one more quick question, if any. If not, okay, let's thank the speaker. Thank you very much. Very nice work. Yeah. Next presenter is Terrell. You're here. Okay. So can you start sharing your screen?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Okay. Can you see my screen now? It should be sharing.
Yes. Now the floor is yours. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone for attending, and thanks for having me here at ALife. So my name is Tyrell, and my PI is Josh Bongard. And I'm going to be telling you about some interesting observations about the effect of the step size parameter in continuous cellular automata. So that's the call out arrow in red on this little equation there. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I'll start with the conclusions at the beginning, so you don't miss anything if you get distracted. So given the common form of continuous cellular automata dynamics and specifically Euler's method for numerical estimation of differential equations, it's natural to expect that shrinking the step size will give us more accurate simulations, more stable patterns, and maybe approach some ideal version of a given self-organizing pattern like a glider. But in fact, this isn't the case. So that hypothesis was wrong. This story could have easily been told in the What Went Wrong tutorial earlier in the week. So CA patterns and continuous frameworks are not generally more stable, and they occupy specific ranges. And a step size that is too small can also be catastrophic, equally as one that is too large, losing to a loss of pattern. I'll also show you some qualitative differences in behavior, which become apparent for some patterns as you change step size. Okay, so the inspiration for this work was a combination of this paper on neural ordinary differential equations and also the the linear framework, which we'll talk a bit about as we go through this. So in the neural ordinary differential equations papers, they essentially noticed the similarity in the way that a residual neural network looks a lot like Euler's method. And so they use adaptive step size ODE solvers instead of a sort of static status quo default step size that you would use in a normal residual network. And they had some interesting results. The information flows in a more smooth way through the forward pass, and they had some performance boosts in certain tasks as well. The next piece of the inspiration for this work was the linear framework. It's a continuous cellular automata framework. It's full of a diverse taxonomy of hundreds of very charismatic self-organizing patterns like this orbium we see in this figure 6 from the paper. And the author Bert Chan noticed as well the core similarity between the dynamics for this type of CA and Euler's method, and speculated that decreasing the step size would continually bring a pattern closer to an ideal version of the true pattern. And for orbium specifically, that does seem to be the case. It doesn't change that much. It gets a little more smooth as you get a smaller step size, and so on. Okay, and I'll just take a little aside briefly to introduce the systems that we're working with here, in case you haven't seen them earlier. Cellular automata in general can be thought of as two steps. First, computing a local context, and then computing some sort of update. So in this linear framework, the local context is a neighborhood computed by convolution with a neighborhood kernel, like this donut shape that we have on the figure. And then the update is according to this growth function, which takes the neighborhoods computed by that convolution, and the results of that is added to the previous state. So there you get the similarity to Euler's method, where you're adding to a previous state some change, and that is proportional to some step size. I'll also show one example from a variation on this framework called Glabrish, which is very similar, and for our purposes, we can consider it basically the same since we're not messing with the rest of the equation. It's a little bit more expressive, it takes longer to write, and it basically is just the growth function has been split into two separate functions that are conditioned on the present state, so genesis and persistence. Okay. Now, just to sort of show that the intuition that myself and others had makes some sense about step size. So this is a simple system, ball drop, simulated in PyBullet, but it's actually using a simulation step size across 4 orders of magnitude. So C is the default step size for this simulator of about a little bit over 4 milliseconds. And then from A to D, we go from 100 times smaller step size, 10 times smaller step size, the natural step size, and finally 10 times larger step size. But the results are essentially the same. There's a little bit of difference in the final one, D, but qualitatively we have the same action. And it's not until we increase the step size by 100 times that we see something like a catastrophic failure of this simulation, and it becomes totally inaccurate. So this is actually this is the pattern that caused me to go forward with this project. So this is a glider that becomes, it's only pseudo-stable. It starts to wobble after a while, and after about 1,000 time steps, it becomes unstable and is destroyed. So I thought, maybe I can stabilize this wobbly glider with an adaptive step size. But in fact, what I found is the opposite. And I suppose that's poor timing that it shows you the result at the end. But you can see with the adaptive step size, which is just very simple, it's still just Euler's method, but the step size is decreased until we are below some error threshold. And when we do that, it becomes less stable. So in fact, it's not that the step size is too large or something like that. It's that there's a very specific range of step sizes that is important for the pattern to be able to organize itself. There are a few other examples of this happening. So this is a single glider from Scudium gravitas in the linear framework, and you can see that it is only stable at a relatively high step size. So if you go below a step size of about 0.25, then it becomes unstable. And it's also unstable at a very high step size approaching 1. So most of these CA and the patterns that I'm aware of that are found in linear are around a step size of about 0.1. So this is much higher than you might normally look. And this is the same rule set with the exception of the step size. And this is a wider glider in Scudium gravitas. And so this one is stable, or at least relatively stable at 0.1. And when it wraps around the CA grid, it becomes pretty stable when it becomes sort of one contiguous line. But you can see that if the step size is too large, it just becomes a pattern, something like a Turing pattern of stripes. And if the step size is too small, it loses stability fairly quickly and disappears. Okay, so from this slide, we see that you can have different patterns that are stable in distinct regions in step size in a rule set that is otherwise identical. But something else that's quite interesting occurs. And actually, I'll see if I'll start that from the beginning. And that is that qualitatively different behaviors, we can observe qualitatively different behaviors as we vary step size. So this is a pattern which I call frog, and it's built in the Glaberish framework. And at a very low step size that we start out with, it has a totally different corkscrew type movement. As we increase the step size, it starts to look more like its namesake and moves in these jerking hopping motions. And we'll go through a few more differences in its behavior as we go through other step sizes. And eventually the step size becomes too large for stability. And that'll take just a few more moments. But you can notice that every time that the step size increases a bit, we get a little bit different behavior. Like that's quite a big difference in the frequency of the hops and also the length. And then here it starts to act very strange. And that's the end of stability for that pattern. Okay, so now just a little bit more discussion on the take home of these observations. So we should consider step size when exploring CA patterns, when looking to optimize them for a specific task, or when searching for gliders or similar patterns in its own right. So the step size in this type of system, this continuous Taylor automated system, is not a simple trade-off between accuracy and computational time. Specific patterns require very particular ranges for stability, and if they're outside of this range, they lose the ability to organize themselves. And that includes losing stability when the step size is too small. So we should probably consider step size as a matter of course whenever doing any sort of optimization. And I think this may also be something worth considering for other dynamic systems that support self-organizing behavior, this sort of Wolfram class 4 type behavior that we look for in cellular automata. In the simple ball drop, it didn't make a big difference across a wide range of step sizes. But I think for the type of physical systems that have these interesting emergent behaviors, step size becomes more important. Okay, so here I'll take any questions. And there's also a notebook that we can try if we go through a few questions first.
Yeah. Great, thank you very much. Time for questions. We have plenty of time. And okay, I see a question from Bert. So what do you think, why those patterns are stable only for a range of parameter values? I guess he means step sizes.
Yeah, so I think that it essentially the self-organization just relies on a very specific inaccuracy, you could say. So the pattern is organized, it's organizing itself, but it's not doing it in a way that's robust across all step sizes. So I think that there's some difference between the step sizes that it's stable at and the smaller step sizes, which we would think are more accurate. But in fact, this inaccuracy is very important for the pattern to be able to organize itself. And I think that's just a matter of in part where we find the gliders. We find them at a certain step size, and then it's going to be step sizes that are far from that. And I think it just has to do with the sort of idea of a complex system, like a three-body system, where you might have an arbitrary error and the results will be totally different. And in these cases, the results that are different and totally different are just, in the end, those patterns.
Yeah. Great. We also get a comment question from Abe. Does this mean that continuous cell automata, as we usually think of them, are not continuous dynamical system at all? Great question.
So if by not continuous dynamical system at all, you mean not a representation of some sort of Platonic ideal, a sort of ideal non-discrete version outside of the computer implementation that we can think about, but we only work with the computer implementation, I think that's correct. So, so yeah, we don't have a Platonic ideal for each of these patterns or rule sets. That's the ultimate accurate solution. Instead, we have these very complex systems that interact and display emergent properties.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I guess that means that discrete dynamical systems analyses will probably be more useful than standard continuous ones for the to understand the sorts of emergent behavior we get here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. That.
Yep. Other questions? Bert, do you have any comments? You can also unmute yourself.
Hey, Tyrell. Thank you for the work. I'm Bert.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so it's very surprising that the time step, smaller and smaller time step doesn't mean smoother and smoother patterns, but sometimes they will destroy the self-organization of certain patterns. That's a very surprising result. So I think the implication is we need to take the time step into account when we are trying to evolve or optimize those patterns, not just a trivial setting, but maybe it becomes a hyperparameter or even a parameter itself when we try to play with those systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta say, it's great to have you in the audience, Bert. And I was just as surprised as you are. It was not the result I expected at all. So, and I think there also may be some difference between a pattern like Orbium, which I haven't been able to make a step size that's too small for it to be stable, and then these other patterns that are that do fall apart at smaller step size. There might be something to do with how the pattern organizes itself. That gives rise to that sort of low end stability, but yeah, I don't know why that occurs for some patterns, but not others.
Yeah, just a general comment. I think any kind of self-organizing patterns exploit everything that they can utilize to create interesting patterns, right? So yeah, Game of Life is obviously one example, but there are many other evolutionary frameworks. They take advantage of numerical errors or any other features of computation process that we are not aware of. So this must be one of the example. And this result, to me, it actually connects directly back to the really classic nonlinear dynamical systems and arguments, like a very classic logistic map, right? Creating chaos. You must have seen that kind of stuff in the complexity 101 type of class. And as you change the parameter or integration steps to really continuous time, regime. It becomes a simple logistic growth, and the chaos never happens, right? The chaos happens only when you have a discrete time steps, and in this case, the time interval actually plays the role of the key parameter growth rate. So, yeah, I think the continuous cell automata also might be showing something similar, right? Discrete steps is really the key to generating something that is really interesting to us. Just a general observation. It's a very nice.
To find the edge of chaos.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other question or comment? We have maybe question for one more question comment. Oh, Tyrell, would you like to show that the notebook? You want to show something to us?
Sure.
Yeah, you still have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
All right, let's see if we can get an example. Okay, so you can try this notebook out for yourself at some point in the future if you want. So I'll go ahead and do I'll do the sort of slow cucumber from hydrogermanium natans. If I have my cursor. Okay, unlock. Okay, so this one's actually going to be the adaptive step size. I may have done the wrong one, but so the normal behavior for this pattern should be that it would just move slowly across the screen, but I'm using the adaptive step size model to simulate it. So if it finishes this 128 frames, we should see something a little bit different. But I haven't actually run this particular simulation before, so it might be a surprise, or it might be very boring. If Colab will finish in time. Okay.
How long does it usually take?
It's just a so actually
no.
I don't know the so this is quite small. Okay, so this one's not doing anything particularly interesting, but I'll just I'll post this URL in the chat, and you can try the notebooks for this and other projects at your own leisure.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very nice work.
I appreciate the discussion.
Yep. Now the final presenter, I guess it's going to be Emily, right? Or Anya? Emily?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi. So please start sharing your screen.
Awesome. Oh, cannot start screen share while the participant is sharing.
Yeah, Tyrell, can you stop sharing your screen? Okay. Emily, please go ahead.
Great. Fascinating talk, Tyrell. That was really cool. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yep.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Dolson. I'm an assistant professor at Michigan State University, and the work I'm going to talk about today was done in collaboration with two fantastic undergraduate researchers from Carleton College, who I worked with last summer, Shaquille Hodge and Jen Ren, and also Anya Bossenar, who is an assistant professor at Carleton College. And today I'm going to be telling you about how we found that the evolutionary stability of host endosymbiont mutualisms is reduced by multi-infection. And I'll explain all of those words in a moment. Kind of the key takeaway here, though, is more symbionts, more problems. Okay, so to make sure we're all on the same page, I wanted to start out by explaining what a host endosymbiont mutualism is. So let's start out by talking about the host endosymbiont part of that. So a host endosymbiont system is one where we've got one organism living inside another. And this can happen in a wide variety of contexts. and the organisms can behave towards each other in a variety of ways, kind of along the spectrum from parasitism to mutualism. So they can choose to harm each other. So the symbiont might try to like steal from the host, and the host might be harmed. That would be parasitism, or they might help each other, and that'd be mutualism. And anything in between is also possible. And these host endosymbiont mutualisms, systems in general, are really common across biology. We see them in like the gut microbiome, in bacteriophage and bacteria, and they are a really rich source of dynamics that we see in nature. And so here we're going to be focusing specifically on what can lead to these mutualisms evolving and being evolutionarily stable, so not likely to evolve away, which can be a question in these kind of cooperative systems, because often there could be a little bit of incentive for one partner to stop helping the other and benefit itself more. So we want to know what makes that not happen and makes them persist. I want to note here, I've been talking about an endosymbiont inside one host, but in reality, pretty much all of these host endosymbiont systems actually have a ton of endosymbionts inside a given host. And we don't have just one bacterium in our guts, we have multitudes of them. And that's going to come back in a second, because the question we're asking here is specifically what factors promote evolutionarily stable mutualisms between a host and an entire community of endosymbionts. And this is a question that we wanted to ask because so far, there's been a lot of research on what can create evolutionarily stable cooperation among a community of kind of peer organisms that are like at the same level of organization. They're like bacteria in a dish or something. There's not like hierarchies of how they each interact with each other. And there's also been a lot of work on, in a pairwise context, what leads to the evolution of stable mutualism between a single endosymbiont and a host. But like I just said, that's not the scenario we're actually in. We're usually in kind of a combination of these scenarios. And so what we wanted to do with this project is to figure out what actually happens when we're in both of those worlds at once. We're in a community of peers that also is collectively a set of endosymbionts inside a host. So to kind of understand what we might expect to see there, it makes sense to think about what we know about these two dynamics in isolation. And there's some kind of like analogous ideas in them. So for instance, in both of these systems, we see that kind of some sort of entangling of evolutionary fates can help lead to kind of more stable cooperation or mutualism. It can lead to, the individuals that are interacting, helping each other, not evolving away from that. So in the context of peers, we see this via kin selection. So kin selection is when it is advantageous for an individual to help another individual that is closely related to it, because it's, basically helping its own genes still. And so if peers are disproportionately helping their kin, you can get stable cooperation in that context. Similarly, in a host endosymbiont context, we don't have kin because the host and the endosymbiont are going to be different species. They're probably very different sizes. They probably evolved in very different directions. But vertical transmission rate is basically the probability that when the host reproduces, the symbiont's offspring are going to end up in the host's offspring. And so if we have a higher vertical transmission rate, a higher probability of that happening, we still get the same entangling of evolutionary fates that we get with kin selection in the peer context. And so both of these dynamics can lead to stabilized cooperation or mutualism. And so yeah, those are kind of the same idea because they're both about shared evolutionary fate. Similarly, division of labor, which is the same in both, happens in both of these systems. So this is very analogous. Division of labor is a very powerful way of stabilizing a cooperation or mutualism, because it's basically the idea that each partner in the cooperation or the mutualism is contributing something that the other one cannot. The symbiont's making resource A and the host is giving them resource B as fuel to do that. And if these are functions that are very different from the function that the partner has, this can be very stable because it can be very hard to cheat and like evolve away. Like, the host might not be able to evolve its own machinery for metabolizing some complex sugar. It might be really far away from doing that, and it might be really easy for the symbiont. And so this division of labor concept can be a really powerful way of creating kind of obligate mutualisms where there needs to be continued mutualism and it's very stable. Okay, so those are both analogous. That's kind of seeming like, maybe we can expect the same things to happen in both of these contexts, but it turns out we can't. So let's think about spatial structure. Spatial structure is a well-known mechanism that stabilizes cooperation among peers because it basically gives each member of this community that's interacting with each other more information about who they're interacting with. In a spatially structured world, you can have repeated interactions with the individuals that are near you, and it can create a basis for each helping each other because you can build up trust over time effectively. And so there's been a ton of results on spatial structure stabilizing cooperation. You might think that it would also stabilize the evolution of host-endo-symbiont mutualisms. Turns out it doesn't. This is a fascinating result that I don't have time to talk about. I totally recommend checking out Anya's paper about this. It's really cool. But basically the punchline is that there's a lot of regions of parameter space where spatial structure actually inhibits the evolution of host-endo-symbiont mutualisms. So basically the big takeaway from this is that some of these act the same in both of these contexts, but some act really differently, and it's not necessarily intuitive ahead of time which one it's going to be for a given dynamic. Like I'm being so surprised when I first saw that result by Anya. So given that, what do we want to do to figure out what's going to happen when these occur simultaneously? Clearly we need some research on this specific problem or else we're not going to be sure. So remember, that's an important question because actually them happening simultaneously is the most common scenario. And most of the theory so far has really only focused on pairwise host-endo-symbiont dynamics. And please, if you have counterexamples, if anyone knows about theory that actually is kind of combining these ideas already, please send them to me. I would love to cite them. I would love to know about them. I feel like we can't be the first people thinking about this, but we haven't been finding a ton of prior research so far. Okay, so assuming that we aren't just totally missing a huge swath of research, we wanted to study this, and digital evolution seemed like a really obvious approach to take because this is kind of a question that is very hard to untangle mathematically because there are so many interacting parts. And digital evolution is kind of made for this scenario. So there's a ton of digital evolution platforms that you could use to study symbiosis. I think Anya actually talked about this paper earlier, so I'm not going to go into it. I mostly just wanted this table here so that you know that it exists, and it's a great resource if you want to ask similar questions. We chose to use a platform called Simulation, which hopefully maybe some of you had a chance to check out the tutorial on earlier in the week. I was really sad to have missed it because I had COVID. But I hear it went really well. So capsule summary of Simulation. Basically, it is designed to help study these host-symbiont dynamics in the simplest possible context because they're already very complex. And so we want to avoid adding more complexity so that we can understand them. And so in Simulation, there are two types of creatures. There are hosts and there are symbionts. Each one by default has a genome that is composed of a single number. It's a floating point value between -1 and 1. We call that the interaction value, and it determines how that individual is going to interact with either its host or its symbionts. So if the host has a number between 0 and 1, that is the proportion of its resources that it is going to donate to its symbionts. Similarly, if the symbionts have an interaction value between 0 and 1, it's the proportion they're going to donate back to their host. When the symbionts receive resources from the host, they multiply it by a synergy factor. That is a simple model for that division of labor idea. So this doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. They can both benefit here. If the symbiont's interaction value is less than 0, that means it is trying to steal resources from the host, and it reflects the intensity with which it's trying to do that. And if the host interaction value is below 0, that means it is defending itself against the symbiont stealing resources from it. So that's the amount of resources that it is investing in defending itself. So that's the basics of how Simulation works. I totally recommend checking it out yourself. You can follow this QR code or this link to the nice web graphical version that you can play with. It's a really cool platform with a lot of flexibility. So previously, it's been used to study the effects of vertical transmission. And I think this is kind of a good starting point for our research on what happens when you add more symbionts and potentially change these dynamics. So just to go over the initial result. So here we have vertical transmission rate on the x-axis. So again, that's the probability that when the host reproduces, the symbiont's offspring are going to end up in the host offspring. And on the y-axis here, we have the final mean interaction value. So this is the values of that genome value that is evolving. And what we see is that, with a single symbiont per host, it doesn't take very much vertical transmission to incentivize mutualism. So these values are all averaging well above 0. Once we get above 0% vertical transmission rate, really the change happens somewhere in between. And yeah, so we see that this does result in the evolution of mutualism, or the evolutionary maintenance of mutualism. There's a slight distinction between de novo evolution and ability for it to be stable once it exists. Okay, so right, we know this. So kind of our obvious first entry into this question was asking, if we add endosymbionts, does that change this relationship? And the answer is yes. So here's 10 symbionts per host. You can see at this point, it now takes a vertical transmission rate closer to 50% or even 60% before we start seeing mutualism. And this just gets more intense as we add symbionts. Until at 100 symbionts, there's barely any mutualism happening. So yeah, basically, this is definitely destabilizing to add more endosymbionts to the host. I do want to make one slight point. You can see there's like a little bit of deviation from the other values here at 100% vertical transmission rate. And that illustrates something important to understand about these results, which is that they are averages. If we look at the actual composition of phenotypes in the population, you can see that this is from that 100% vertical transmission rate condition with 100 symbionts. You can see there actually is consistently a very small amount of mutualism. So these are the phenotypes that we observe basically as a little histogram per replicate. And you can see that, yeah, there's a little bit of mutualism, it's just being swamped out by the parasitism. Okay, so from that, we can conclude that as we add more endosymbionts, we definitely see a higher vertical transmission rate necessary to achieve the same level of stability of mutualism that we saw at a lower vertical transmission rate with fewer symbionts. And this kind of makes sense if you think about it. The symbionts are sort of treating the host as a public good. So it's like a public goods game in the game theory sense, which means that it's easy for any individual symbiont to cheat and help itself at the cost of the community by taking more resources from the host. And so since, sorry. So since this is basically a public goods game, this is basically kind of about the ecology among the symbionts within the host, this led us to our next question, which is, can we affect the interactions between the symbionts and the hosts simply by adjusting the ecological interactions among the symbionts within a given host? And since I already said this is basically a public goods game, we thought the obvious starting point here would be to add an explicit public goods game on top of that implicit one so that we could control the parameters and see which ones are affecting this. And so we added one additional floating point value to the genome of the symbionts. That is their donation rate. It's between 0 and 1, and it's the proportion of their resources that they are going to donate to a collective pool. And so basically the way a public goods game works is all of the members of the population that are playing choose to donate some amount of their resources. The resources that are donated are all multiplied by some synergy factor and then redistributed evenly among the population. So again, you can totally cheat at this game, but theoretically, if everyone cooperates, everyone can come out ahead. And conventionally, you can kind of increase the incentive to cooperate by increasing the synergy factor that the resources are multiplied by. Okay, so what is the effect of this? Well, I want to start by saying these results are really preliminary. We're still doing some follow-up work here. And also the results I'm about to show you are kind of an accident, but that makes them all the more fascinating in my mind. So I was thinking we should start by varying that synergy rate. I did not communicate that well, and we ended up actually varying not the synergy rate, but the initialization value for that donation rate. So the value that the first symbionts added to the population have before it evolves away. And so here we are going to see a graph that is showing the evolved interaction value over those different initial donation rates. And what you can see is that, and this is just kind of shocking to me, it actually has an effect. So at the low initial donation rates, we see the same results that we saw without any of this public goods game. So this is with 100 symbionts per host. So this was a condition where there was no mutualism at all. And this is vertical transmission rate of 0.6. So again, no mutualism was being observed in the version without this public goods game. But then when we added, a value that was substantially higher for this initial donation rate, we actually start to see some mutualism. And this is after 100,000 time steps, which is like at least 1,000 generations. So this is actually like, this is an effect from the very initialization of this run that has persisted for a substantial amount of time. And it's not stable. This does evolve away. In fact, if we look at kind of the individual phenotypes of, in this case, these are the hosts, you can see that we do start to see these kind of cascades where they start out mutualistic and then they shift over time to being more and more parasitic. So this is by no means like a stable phenomenon that we've locked in just by starting the donation rate high. But what it does say is that even just giving them a little bit of a push towards cooperating amongst these symbionts inside the host can really affect the dynamics of the evolution between the collective group of symbionts and the host. And so that's kind of our key takeaway here. Yeah, adding even a very small amount of cooperation seems like it can stabilize this collective mutualism between the host and the endosymbiont, which I think is really cool. I'm really excited to see what happens when we actually vary the synergy rate. But this definitely implies to me that the ecology among the symbionts inside the host can have a really big effect. We're also very excited to try out other kind of ecological interactions that they could have. But for now, our main take-home message is, so adding endosymbionts, all else being equal, can really destabilize these mutualisms between the host and the symbiont. I think it creates a lot more chaos, more problems. But changing the ecology among those symbionts has a really profound influence on the way coevolution occurs between these hosts and these symbiont communities. I'd just like to thank my co-authors again, Shaquille Hodge, Jen Wren, and Anya Vassanar. I'd also like to thank my lab, the Evolutionary Controlled Digital Ecologies Lab, who had lots of good feedback on this project as it's been shaping up. If you want to know more, there's lots of links here, lots of funding sources, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Emily. I hope you recover soon.
Thanks.
Yeah. So time for questions. I have a question. Yeah, can I start? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
go for it.
This is great work. So this might be related to the second model you presented, in which you have inter-symbiont cooperation. Do you also can you also consider the more direct symbiotic relationship among the symbionts? So this is slightly different from making donation and receiving the independent resources, but rather, two or three microorganisms are actually relating to each other. So they need each other. So that is probably more stronger forms of ecology inside your body, right?
Yeah. So you mean like, if you had a scenario where some symbionts were like creating some resource and giving it to other symbionts. Yeah. I think that is a fascinating question. I am really excited to kind of delve further into it. We wanted to start with a simple ecology before we create like these networks, but we're definitely thinking about what the right way is to create like a network of ecological interactions within the host. Because I think that would definitely have an effect. And I think probably if all those interactions were cooperative, my instinct based on these results is that would probably also stabilize the mutualism with the host. But, in reality, like if you think about our gut microbiome or something, we have all kinds of interactions. There are some antagonistic ones, some cooperative ones, and I have no idea what the effect of that collectively is going to be.
Yep. I see the Wolfgang raise a hand. Wolfgang, please.
Yes, thank you very much. This was a very nice talk. My question is, you made a distinction between the origin of mutualism and its dynamics or stabilization for two players, I think. And then you had this big system where there were maybe up to 100. So I was wondering whether a study of looking at gradually adding mutualists or having them emerge over time, wouldn't that be completely different, produce different results for the bigger systems?
Quite possibly, yeah. I think that would be fascinating to look at. Right, I think that also gets at something that I also didn't have a chance to talk about here, which is the effect of population size. So we definitely saw that under these different settings, we saw a lot of natural variation in population size. Like some configurations were not able to support as large of population sizes as others. Like when a lot of the symbionts were choosing to be parasitic, they weren't able to take advantage of that synergy factor, and it wasn't able to support as large of a population of endosymbionts. And so I think, untangling the effect of population size is going to be tricky because we have these kind of like confounding natural effects of population size. But I think you're right that it almost certainly would have a role, an effect.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? We can take one more question, quick question maybe. Yep, Margareta, go ahead.
Okay, hi. Just wanted to ask, what is maybe the difference between symbiosis and just general ecological relationship? Is it some kind of asymmetry? Because
Great question. So okay, pure
because,
symbiosis. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, like the difference is that the host is sort of, well, I just say asymmetry. It's not the balance, like power game or something.
Yes, I would say that's definitely true of specifically the kind of symbiosis I'm talking about here is endosymbiosis. Endo meaning like, one organism is inside the other. And yeah, in that case, I think there's definitely this asymmetry that characterizes it because one organism is the one that's inside the other and the other is the one that's the outside. Just that symbiosis just means that the two organisms are living in very close association with each other. And so that less necessarily has this asymmetry. In practice, I think most relationships that we talk about as symbiosis have some sort of asymmetry, but I mean, not necessarily all of them. Yeah, symbiosis as a broader category, I would say no, but endosymbiosis, yes.
So could you think like somehow comparatively studying like ecosystem and then ecosystem or symbiotic things and then endosymbiosis, like three parallel ones and somehow build a study from that comparatively?
Oh, yeah, that's a really great question. Like, yeah, kind of comparing how those three different scenarios act differently. Yeah, so I mean, right, the pure ecosystem one is basically kind of like the same thing that's happening inside the hosts. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it wouldn't be hard to create a system like that. And we obviously already have the endosymbiosis. The symmetric symbiosis, I would want to think about like what the right way to do that that was comparable was. But I think it's an interesting question of like, right, is this asymmetry something that's important?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you very much. I think that we can continue discussion, but let me formally close the session by thanking all the presenters. So thank you very much for everyone for a great talk. So this concludes the final main session, and then we will have probably 6 minutes, 7 minutes break. And please stay here because there will be the society meeting and the final award ceremony also starting in the same session. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Stay tuned.
So the next session should start in just a couple of minutes with the ISAL members session and the award ceremony. Okay, so it's officially 3:30 CST, so we should probably get started with this session. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Charles Ofrea. I'm the president of the International Society for Artificial Life. So this is one of the final sessions where we're going to just talk a little bit about the International Society and all sorts of things related to that and how you can get involved. But for the thing that we're going to do first, which is always one of my favorite parts, is the award ceremony, where we have collected information about all sorts of people around the community and who have really made different sorts of contributions to the field of artificial life. And we have a range of awards that we give out. So for the award ceremony, I'm going to turn things over to Lisa Soros, who will be running that portion of events. So Lisa.
Great, thanks. I will go ahead. Oh, I think you have to stop sharing your screen so I can share mine. Okay, great. Oops, that is not what I meant to hit. Let's do slideshow. Okay, great. So welcome to the 2022 ISAL Awards ceremony. So the ISAL Awards are given out yearly to recognize accomplishments in the field of artificial life. We use them to sort of incentivize doing things throughout the year, and we like to have a little bit of fun with it. So nominations for these awards come from the broader community, and then a panel of judges for each award is also selected from the broader community to decide who gets the awards. So what we're going to do is there are going to be various presenters for these different awards. And if you're somebody who's winning an award here today, you'll have a chance to say a couple words if you'd like. We have a bit of time today. So first of all, I wanted to say thanks to Cliff Baum, who I should be here. I believe he's here. If he's not here, that's okay. But every year he creates awards for us that are absolutely fantastic. Cliff, are you here or no?
I am here.
Awesome.
Can you hear me? Good.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to show off any of the awards.
I could. If you let me share screen, I can show off what we have for this year. Okay, so all right, hopefully that's sharing. So these are the guys for this year. They're, I don't know, they're a little walking, they're somewhere between a plant and an animal. So I don't know. Like usual, the bodies of these things are formed from just regular old nails. This is a close-up of one of them. This is them infesting my shop. This is how they grow out of my metal tables, and I harvest them. And then also, I just wanted to show this one really quick. We didn't get around to sending out awards last year, but this new form showed up in my shop recently, and I'm cultivating these for to give for the people who won awards last year. So that is that's that. So thank you.
Yeah, it's true, Charles. It's fortunate that people don't need to take these on airplanes this year since everyone's at home.
If they can't be used to kill someone, then I didn't do my job right. If you look through the years, they're pretty much all deadly weapons.
All right. Well, we appreciate you making these every year. So great. Let's go ahead and move on with the awards then. So our first award is going to be presented by Susan Stepney, and this is the Artificial Life Journal Outstanding Reviewer Award, which is a relatively new award for us.
Yes, thank you. I think this is the second time we've given this award for the Outstanding Reviewer for the Artificial Life Journal. And the idea is that this recognises an individual who's provided a review for the journal that was of an exceptional quality in terms of depth, breadth and insight. Reviewers are often an invisible part of journal life, but their work helps both the authors and the journal to maintain quality. So the winner for the journal reviewer providing the most outstanding review this year is Edward Weinberger from NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Ed's review demonstrated an uncommon attention to detail. He delved into particular aspects of the submitted paper and teased out specific and relevant behaviours. His review was thorough and clear, and he went out of his way to provide useful feedback to the authors. Many thanks, Ed. I don't think Ed's here for the award, but I can't see him in the list. But he demonstrates the breadth of the reviewers that we get. It's not everybody from just within the Artificial Life conference community. So thank you, Ed.
Great, congratulations. Okay, our next award is going to be the Outstanding Student Publication Award, which is going to be presented by Emmy Khan.
Hello. Okay, so I think there is a description of what this award is about on the next slide. Yeah, so this award is awarded to the paper, well, to recognize a student or a postdoc for a paper or publication that they published either while they were a student or any researcher who is still a student or within about 3 years of graduation. And this award is judged by a committee. So this year it was the ISAL student group. And I just want to say a very well done firstly to everybody whose paper was nominated. We had the pleasure of reading and reviewing all of them. They were all deserving of the nominations that they received. I've got a couple of minutes just to be very transparent about how we assess the papers. We assessed them on 5 points, and I won't go into the details. So it was scholarly rigor, accessibility of the paper, the student contribution or the perceived student contribution, and then the likely impact within ALife and outside of ALife as well. So on those 5 points, sort of we assessed them. It was very close, but there was one standout paper. And just if I can mention one of the nomination comments that we had received, and just to take some of these statements out. So you know, we had comments like, this is an excellent research paper, leveraging the strengths of digital evolution to make important insights into the dynamics of life. And beyond the interesting results, the authors have done an excellent job of making their work as accessible and reproducible as possible. And in particular, they have their code and data available and beautifully organized, ensuring that others will be able to build off this work easily. Perhaps what's most impressive is that 3 of the 4 authors are or were students within the last 3 years, and that this article makes a truly fantastic effort and result, regardless of research stage. And as we reviewed the paper, you know, we all independently came to an agreement on these points as well. So without further delay, I'm happy to announce that this year's winners are Alexander Lalagini, Austin Ferguson, Nkrumah Grant, and Charles Afriyie. for their paper, Adaptive Phenotypic Plasticity Stabilizes Evolution in Fluctuating Environments. Well done, everybody.
Great. Do we have any of the authors here to say a few words? If you don't want to, that's also fine.
Yeah, I don't have anything. First off, thank you very much. Super honored.
You're very quiet, Austin.
Oh, can I move the mic closer? Does that help? I'm sorry. No, thanks everybody. Yeah, super honored for this. Wish Alex was here. Unfortunately, he caught COVID right before ALife. As lead author, I wish he was here to actually say some words. But yeah, this was great. Fantastic to work with Alex and Kurma, and of course Charles. So thanks again.
Right, great, and congratulations. Okay, our next award is going to be the Exceptional Service Award presented by Hiroki.
Yep, thank you, Lisa. So the Exceptional Service Award is actually one of the oldest awards that ISAL set up. It started in 2014, if I remember correctly. So this award is to recognize, there must be a description, yeah. To recognize people who has made exceptional service to the field of artificial life and also to the society by, for example, helping to organize the ALife conferences, the communities, developing the very useful resources for the group, the society members, as well as the researchers at large, or maybe facilitating the administration of ISAL operation. So, so this year's winner is the ISAL newsletter team. So I believe everybody, they deserve the big applause. So everybody is now receiving the monthly, I guess, the newsletter from ISAL with lots of their fun, new, useful information. I enjoy myself reading a lot of stuff that I'm getting older. I need to keep up with all the new cool stuff, what's going on in the artificial life field and beyond. And this has been a very, very helpful resource for everybody in the community. And also, if you have a chance to run this kind of stuff, how hard it is to maintain the active, the communication. So they have been putting lots of effort in coordinating, inviting contributions. So we owe a lot. So thank you very much, the ISAL newsletter team. I don't know who is here, so feel free to unmute yourself and say a few words.
I think we have at least 2 members of the team. Me and Imi. I think maybe Mitsuyoshi might be here. I didn't see his name.
Yeah,
I'm
here.
Yeah, great. We have 3 people. Yeah, I want to say the name of the people who are actually working to make this newsletter happen. It's a really hard work, as you said, and I'm very proud of them. So there is Imi, Mitsuyoshi, who are both here, Klaus and Kat, and me. And so, yeah, we really encourage you to send your contributions. We are very happy to see that people enjoy reading the newsletter. I also want to say that it's not just content. We also have the stellar work of Mitsuyoshi and Klaus, who are doing coding behind the scenes to generate the newsletter every time. So yeah, congratulations, everyone.
Thank you very much. And although the award itself is given to the project team, but you can put this as your individual award in your resume. Yeah, everybody should do it. Okay, thank you very much. Again, congratulations.
Okay, great. And then the next award that Hiroki will also present is the Education and Outreach Award.
Yeah, thank you. So the Education and Outreach Award. So this award is to recognize people who made the important, outstanding contribution to the teaching about actual life, or uses ALife for the teaching something other like evolution biology, and or they maybe they are conducting some other outreach effort to spread the ideas and the concept tools of artificial life to the broader public. So this is fairly the important effort, especially now that AI and technology, artificial life are getting into our everyday life. So we really want to educate people, make people aware, and then create a social impact. With that, this year's winner is Cross Labs. Okay, congratulations. For those who are not familiar with the Cross Labs, it's an independent research institute founded as part of the Cross Campus, which is a company located in Tokyo, Japan. The Cross Labs has been established in 2019, I believe, and this has been making lots of connection between ALife with the more traditional AI, machine learning, IT industries, as well as running the various kinds of public outreach activities, such as in-person events, online webinars, interviews and publishing journals even to promote ALife to the broader community. So truly their activities conducting at the Cross Labs are very multifaceted and not only confined inside the academic silo, but more like involving people in industry and the general public. So with that, I would like to congratulate Cross Labs and thank you very much for your contribution to the field and beyond. Who should be the right person to talk about Cross Labs? Lisa?
I probably Olaf if Olaf's here. I'm not sure if Olaf's here.
Yeah. Is Olaf here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Yeah, I can say thank you from everyone. So that's Lisa, that's me, that's I guess thank you Stephen, Onelis, especially Martin, Antoine, Katsuta. So there's a lot of people, but also all the community around Cross Labs that attend our events or our activities. Yeah, they've been amazing in supporting everything we do, and yeah, I'm really I really appreciate this this from ISL appreciating what we are doing, and especially yeah, we're trying to bring in younger members, and I think that's very important. I hope we can keep working on that together. I don't know if Lisa, you want to say something. Also, you've been very active in this.
I just want to encourage everyone to check out our YouTube channel and attend our Crossroads events that happen monthly. So that's how we form. That's a big part of our community building activities. So come hang out with us.
Yep. Thank you. Please post the links to the chat box so that people can check out. Okay. Thank you very much.
Great. So then next we'll move on to the outstanding publication of 2021, which will be presented by Steen Rasmussen.
Yeah, so this is a great pleasure to do that. It's, I don't know, 2.5 years ago when I first heard about these xenobots that Josh Bongard and Michael Levine had cooked up. And I think this is a really amazing platform. I guess they were also sort of selected last year, but I think that now they have expanded their platform so that they can sort of let these small muscle cells from frogs self-assemble through a self-organizing process, and they can form all kinds of amazing things. And I think that this will be a platform that can be used for, or will be used for, all kinds of things in the future. So it's a great contribution, and because of its simplicity and deep insight, I think many of us will use it, and it will go way beyond the ALife community. So congratulations to these great ideas and this wonderful implementation.
Great. Do we have any of the authors here to say a few words? Not sure.
You have one of the authors here.
Oh, hello. Okay, great.
Josh, yeah.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you, Steen, for that introduction to our paper, and hello to everyone. I'm just here to receive this award on behalf of the team here. I'd like to, in particular, call out Doug Blackiston and Sam Kriegman, who've been the real primary engines behind Xenobots. Mike and I are just here to provide the money in the lab space. They're the real drivers of Xenobots. They wanted to be here today, but they are hosting a documentary film crew and making some Xenobots for film crews. They couldn't be here today. Very briefly, I just wanted to say, I think I consider Xenobots true children of the artificial life community. I am still a student of artificial life. Like many of you, I was inspired by the original founders of the field that really challenged us to consider and make life as it could be. I think Xenobots qualifies. And for the younger folks that are on this call, I hope the Xenobots demonstrate that this community can do amazing things. There are so many undiscovered things left at the interface between biology and computer science and all the other branches that contribute to artificial life. So this is just the beginning for the Xenobots, and I think for our community as well, there's been some great ideas in this community over many years, and I think technology is just catching up where we can start to bring some of these things into reality. So I would invite the rest of the community to continue on searching for life as it can be and to create it. Thanks very much, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't participate in the conference this year. Looking forward to doing so next year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Cool. So then we'll move on to our next award, which is the Outstanding Publication of the Decade 2007 to 2017.
Yeah, that's another great pleasure here, because this is something that goes back to the late zeros, where a group of people started to study droplet motility. And I mean, this paper has had a huge impact, and again, it's in a way it's of course very different from the previous award, but there is something similar about it. You know, droplets, we all have seen them, we know what they are, and they're easy to make. So many laboratories across the world has taken this up as a new research enterprise. And they are starting all these crazy things that these simple systems they can do. And it was generated from Martin and Toro Toyota and Takashi and Norman Packard and Sugawara. So congratulations with that. I mean, you truly made a completely new area here. And my favorite thing with these things, besides all the wonderful motility, is that you demonstrated how chemical energy can be turned into kinetic energy, and this is of course needed in replication when you need to have these aggregates, these protocellular aggregates we're trying to make them divide. So yes, congratulations for this amazing work.
All right, do we have anyone here from the paper?
Yes, Takashi.
Hi.
Great.
Hi. Thanks, Steen. Thank you very much for this wonderful prize. Martin has a populated appendix, so he cannot come here. But I'm taking everyone's place here, right? The paper is as about moving oil droplet. When we wrote the paper together with Norman Packard and Martin and Tadashi Sugawara and then Taro Toyota. I really thank you for this wonderful award. Well, the idea of making a moving oil droplet started when I first met Martin at Santa Fe when we invited to the conference. And then I was wearing green shoes, and Martin complimented me on them, and then we became a friend. So I think it's a good idea to wear green shoes. So let's do something very interesting artificial work. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steen.
All right, congrats to Kashi and everybody else on the paper.
If I can say something from Martin that could have been present, it says, thank you very much for this award. Unfortunately, I've been at the hospital the whole week. I missed you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, so next we will move on to the Distinguished Early Career Investigator Award presented by Wolfgang Banzow.
Yes. Do we have a description of the award? I'm very happy to be the one that announces this award. It is to recognize an individual who is early in their career, typically a pre-tenure researcher, but has already made important contributions to artificial life. And it is my great pleasure to announce the winner of this year's Distinguished Early Career Investigator Award, Lana Sinapayan. Congratulations, Lana. Dr. Lana Sinapayan's research really centers on artificial life, and she's a great ambassador of our field. She receives the award for her contributions and outreach. Artificial life as a science and as a community. Besides her advertising the beauty and complexity of our field, she has contributed to work in neural information processing, artificial perception research, as well as to origin of life and astrobiological research questions. We see her as having a bright future in our community. Congratulations again, Lana.
Thank you, Wolfgang. And I really want to thank the awards committee because I really didn't expect this. And I want also to thank the community as a whole for making me feel welcome and empowered to contribute. One of my goals in ALife is to make every new member whatever their career stage, have the same kind of experience that I had when I first discovered ALife by chance. So thank you, everyone.
Great, congratulations, Lana. And now we'll move on to our final award, which is the Lifetime Achievement Award, which will be presented by Susan Stepney.
Hi, thanks. Yes, the Lifetime Achievement Award is to recognise an individual who's made profound contributions to the field of artificial life, influencing the work of many others and helping to shape the state of the art. Now, despite the fact it says individual in that title, the committee this year has decided to award this Lifetime Achievement Award to two different individuals. So I'm going to be introducing both of those. So the first joint winner is Professor Stephanie Forrest from Arizona State University and formerly from the University of New Mexico and the Santa Fe Institute. So Stephanie is a pioneer in the artificial immune system approach to computer security, as evidenced by her many papers with many thousands of citations. She's now director of the Biodesign Center for Computation, Security and Society, which demonstrates her phenomenal leadership in the field. And her research is an excellent example of how ideas from the fields of artificial life can have significant and wide-ranging impact outside our community as well as within. So congratulations, Stephanie.
Okay, I don't believe we have Stephanie here. I could be wrong.
Yes.
Oh, we do.
Yes, we do.
Excellent. That's
Yes.
wonderful.
Wow. Thank you. I'm kind of stunned, but extremely grateful. I don't have any prepared remarks because I didn't actually know anything about this until, well, I didn't know what the award was and Charles wouldn't tell me. And I only found out about that I had to show up yesterday. But anyway, wow, thank you. First of all, I guess thank you to the committee for thinking of me and selecting me. And mostly, I just want to thank everyone in this wonderful community who have been my colleagues for so many years. I'm seeing old faces and new faces, and my association with this community really dates back to the very early years of the first few conferences in Santa Fe that were organized by Chris Langton and what I like to refer to as his henchmen and women. But anyway, wow, thank you. This is totally unexpected and I feel overwhelmed and just unbelievably honored. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll wait for the applause to die down, so the virtual applause. Okay, and the second winner, joint winner, the thunder has slightly been stolen from the slide, but the second joint winner this year is Professor Wolfgang Banzhaf from Michigan State University. So Wolfgang is a leader in the artificial life community in terms of both his research on genetic programming and on artificial chemistry, as well as his service and leadership within the community. So he's the John R. Kozer Chair in Genetic Programming, and he has many thousands of citations of his work in artificial life and was instrumental in modernizing the ISAL membership system as the membership chair. And he's been actively involved in the artificial life community since the early years and is a key driving force for artificial life at international scales. So many congratulations, Wolfgang.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to receive this award today, and I'm also especially honored to share it with Stephanie. I mean, this is just a great present for me, and thank you very much to the community. I also want to thank all of the people I had the opportunity to work with in my career so far. I mean, it's a lifetime award, but we are not done. We are not done. We want to continue, both of us. I'm sure Steph would agree. So thank you very much for this wonderful award. And hopefully for many years, we can contribute to the community.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So that's the end of our awards. So thank you everyone for your attention, and make sure next year to when we have our call for nominations to get your nominations out early so that we can do this again next year. So with that, I think I'll hand it back to Charles.
Thanks, Lisa. Let me share my screen again to go over to the talk. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, congratulations again to all the award winners. I think we just had such a stellar crop of award winners this year. I mean, every one of these was very, very well deserved, and it's just so exciting to see all of that. I'm gonna right now go through some stuff about ISAL. First, I want to just say a little bit about who is currently running ISAL. So we have actually currently 20 people on the board of directors. Some of these, or many of these, are elected people. I think 12 of us are elected, and the rest are appointed on the board to be in specific roles. But as you can see, we have many different roles on the board, where in order to make sure that we're trying to always improve and move forward in all sorts of different areas here. We have a very active board. A typical board meeting will have more than a dozen people at it. And often as many as 16, and this is despite the fact that if you look at where the people are, it's around the world, and so we often have people who it's the middle of the night for these board meetings. But this is a very active group. You should feel free to contact any of us with any questions about ISAL as all of this goes on. Everyone on here is familiar with what we're doing, and in particular, and I'm going to harp on this more in just a little bit, but in particular, if you want to get involved, because we always want people involved. You don't have to be on the board to be involved. There's many different sorts of ways too, and I will get to that. So first of all, the simplest way to get involved is to become a member of ISAL, and there's lots of good reasons to be a member. So the general one is to have more of a say in what we do. We are always excited to talk with current members and really get feedback and try and shape the society to be as useful as possible. There's obviously conference discounts. So when the conferences are in person, it can be a reasonably sizable discount. When the conferences are virtual, it's typically even a larger fraction. In fact, this year, we didn't charge anything extra for the conference beyond being the cost of being an ISAL member. So anyone who is a member could simply come to the virtual conference. And we have to figure out financially what we can do in the future, but we definitely want as many people to be involved in these conferences as possible. And going forward, we are definitely aiming to have conferences be hybrid so that people can join virtually if they can't be there in person. Of course, we're always going to encourage anyone who can be there in person to be there, because it's always so much fun. Obviously, you can have access to the Artificial Life Journal if you're an ISAL member, and you can also keep the journal free for publication. Because one of the things that we're really happy with is that we do not charge authors anything for publishing in the journal. We are still working toward ideas on how to make the journal open access. There's all sorts of financial issues with that. But right now, anyone who's a member does have access. Of course, they're to be involved in the whole awards process, is part of membership. And now we have a new artificial life encyclopedia that's been building up online, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But the encyclopedia, we really want to build up to have information about all of the different research going on in the field, and anyone can read the encyclopedia, but we want it to be experts in the community that are contributing to this encyclopedia. And so one of the things as an ISAL member, you can contribute to the encyclopedia. And we're of course going to try and keep membership prices low. I think right now it's about somewhere around $50 for students and about $100 for non-students. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I know they're near there. All right, so then the other thing we would really want you to do is stay in touch on social media. So one thing that's definitely worth doing is to go to the ISAL mailing list and sign up on there. So we've recently set up a bunch of shortcuts to get to different places. So for the iSal mailing list, if you just go to mlist.alife.org, you can sign up on there. That will take you to the announcements mailing list. However, we do have other sub mailing lists that if you go there, you'll be able to see that you can join other things as well. You should follow us on Twitter. There's the ALife at ALife official, which is tweets from iSal proper. At iSal students, which is tweets from the student group, student postdoc group, ERA. And there's at ALife conference, which is where all the information about conferences will continue to get tweeted. Or join us on Facebook. So there, that's the Facebook address. Facebook hasn't been nearly as active as Twitter, although we should try and change that. If you want to actually have conversations with us, we have an iSal community Slack. That's the link. I actually, right before this talk started, created slack.alife.org. So it might start working now. It normally takes somewhere around an hour, so it might not be working yet. But this bit.ly one will definitely work. Slack.alife.org. If it doesn't work yet, will work very soon. And then, of course, if you want to join in on conversations on Reddit, you can just go to reddit.com/r/alife. So these are all fantastic places to to interact with us, to find out what's going on. Please do all of that. And then we also want you to get involved. And so there's reading and contributing to the ALife newsletter, which you already are familiar with. I also created a shortcut there for newsletter.alife.org. That one should already be active. And so that will jump you straight to the to the set of different newsletters. And so you can keep up to date on those. There's the encyclopedia of artificial life that I was mentioning earlier. So you can get there, encyclopedia.alife.org. And the encyclopedia, we really want lots of people contributing. So I know that Emily has put a bunch of stuff together for this and had a session earlier in the conference explaining to everyone how to contribute. It's not very difficult. I know there were some issues with new members being, that were just joined for the conference getting on. And I don't know, Emily, if you've had a chance to resolve that yet, but I think it'll be resolved very soon, if not. But the encyclopedia is really a mix of things. And actually, you know what, I could actually show you some of these things. I'm going to jump over just so that you can see these. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is the right one. See if I'm sharing some random thing. Okay, this is perfect. All right, so I mentioned the mailing list before. This is what you'll see when you go for the mailing list, and you can just hit join this group. I'll jump through all these very quickly again. If you go to the Slack, you'll have to log into it. I did all this in a private window so that it wouldn't just log me into things. The newsletter, you'll see all the new newsletters that have been released so far, and there'll be regular updates to that. So the encyclopedia, what we really want to have in here is lots of detail. So in the introductory resources, we want people to be able to find definitions of all of the different terms that they're working with. We want people to be able to find what common systems are being used out there that they might be interested in, and have all sorts of different ideas of what's going on in different subfields. And we're happy for articles in depth on different research areas. We're happy for you to give links to your own papers if you think that they cover a particular topic. It is fine to advertise on here as long as it is done in the context of teaching people how all of this works. For these articles, though, we do want a community consensus, and so it is also fine to update other articles in order to try and make the articles as well-rounded as possible, but we also want depth. And I know, so Emily Dolson set this up originally. I know one of the one of the main things on here that she really wanted to do was just make it so that everyone and the community feels comfortable adding all of their stuff. So there's that, and then the next thing I was going to show on my slides, but I'll just jump straight to here, is the ERA group, the Emerging Researchers in Artificial Life. And so this is the student postdoc group, or I should say, very early career researchers group. And so there's a lot of people that are very active in this group. If you want to get more involved in your student or a postdoc or otherwise a hobbyist, someone who's early career, I think the way that they often frame things is that if you're not sure whether or not you belong in ERA, you probably do, right? And so, yeah. And I don't know, did anyone from ERA want to say a few words, or I don't want to just talk about the student group that I'm not obviously part of? Okay, I will feel free to interrupt if you want to. Okay, I am going to switch back to my slides. I'm going to try it. Where did it? I'll just share my desktop, I guess. I don't know, this for some reason my slides disappeared, but they're still on the desktop, so that works. Does this look right? Okay, good. All right. So anyway, so there's the ERA group. Now, if you want to help with any of the website or social media side, Emily Dolson is the webmaster, and she's always happy to get help with all of this. So that's her email address. If you just have any other ideas of how you want to help, please contact me. I will either be able to talk to you directly or redirect you to whoever is in charge of a particular area. But we absolutely want to have as many people involved as possible. All right, now the next really important thing to talk about is the Artificial Life Journal. For this, I will turn things over to Susan. Susan, let me know if you have slides you want to share and you want me to put this down, or else you can just talk over these.
No, that's fine. I'll just talk. I showed some slides at the special session this morning, so I'll just quickly summarize that. So there are two main publication outlets. There's the Artificial Life Conference papers, and then there's the Artificial Life Journal, MIT Press Journal. And Alan Doran and myself are the editors-in-chief of the journal, and we want to encourage people to publish there as well as at the conference. So we publish across the whole range of artificial life topics, from artificial organisms, artificial ecosystems and societies, tools and techniques and applications of artificial life, how you analyze it, how you teach it, or whatever. Open-endedness is a big theme that excites a lot of people, and also history and philosophy of artificial life. So really anything on artificial life, please think about using the journal as an outreach source there. We have a variety of different article types. There's the standard research article, but we also publish short letters. We have a fast track route, and we also publish longer, more in-depth reviews. And if you're interested in writing a review of anything in the artificial life domain, please contact us and we'll work with you on that. As Charles said, the Artificial Life Journal is free to publish in. We do have an open access publication route where you do pay, but that's a special thing that you have to sign up for. It is generally free to publish. We have an open data and code policy to help with transparency and reproducibility. And we publish a variety of special issues where one or two editors might propose a special issue, and they are then responsible for soliciting the papers and reviewing the papers for that. If you've got an idea for a special issue, again, please contact us. We're very interested in publishing these. And every year, the conference itself organizes a special issue based on the best papers from the conference. They get an extended version into the journal. I think it was an innovation last year or the year before, as well as the link from the conference to the journal, there's now a link from the journal to the conference. If you published a paper in the journal, apart from in the conference special issue, obviously, you get a guaranteed speaking slot at the next year's ALife conference. So it's a kind of a route to make sure that you get into the conference as well. So we had that special session this morning, which I think demonstrated the range of the kind of articles that we publish in the journal. So if you want to know anything more about the journal publishing, being a reviewer, whatever, contact either myself or Alan Doran. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Susan. Okay, so the final thing that it is my pleasure to do is, of course, to thank the conference organizers for this year before passing the beacon back over to them to give out the conference awards and announce next year's conference. But this year's conference was the organizers agreed to take this on very late when we really needed someone. They jumped in. They've done an amazing job pulling all of this together. This conference has gone off so smoothly. And I just want to personally express how much I really appreciate the incredible amount of work that each of them have put into this. Particularly Sylvia has been on top of everything going on for the last almost year now since she took over, and that's after being heavily involved in last year's conference and doing so much for that one. And so, I mean, the amount of work that you've put in, Sylvia, to support this society and make these events so successful, I just personally and on behalf of the society need to thank you so very much over all of this. And I guess with that, maybe we take a moment just to give a round of applause to this year's organizers. And I will turn things back over to Sylvia, who will take things from here. And thank you all for listening about the society.
Yes, so I would like at this point to call Olaf, because I think he would like to announce the winners of the Student Award, Abstract and Essay Competition Award. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Sylvia. So this is a student essay and abstract contest. The goal is really to allow students to easily come. So so we'll organize that again, and please spread the word. This allowed this year especially for every student who submitted an essay to take part in the conference for free, which is amazing. Thank you so much for that. All right, so 2 quick special mentions, and then I'll announce the winner. First special mention is for a high school student who wrote an amazing essay that we really liked because it was so enthusiastic, touching, inspiring, and the writing was really showing the passion for astrobiology in ALife. It was Complex Dynamical Systems and Networks is the title, by Louisa Tierney. So yeah, congratulations to her. I'll post the names right after I read this. Second special mention, also not a winner, but the runner-up, and also the best essay by a master's student. The title is Computational Post-Cognitivism, How Simulations of Artificial Life Support Theory Building. And the author is Stefan Rigo, and I want to congratulate him as well. Everybody really liked this essay from the jury. And finally, I want to announce the winner. This was the jury's favorite essay. It was so clear, stated such a nice background from the field, questions, methods, limitations, really great in so few words, very nice and clear connections to ALife as well. And the best student essay is Transformers as Reservoir Computers for Reinforcement Learning by Federico Pigozzi. and congratulations. So this is the winner for this year. Thank you everyone again for submitting all those great essays. It was really great from myself and all the jury. Thank you also for the jury to read all of those.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Olaf. I think we are far ahead sometime, but in time, but maybe even better because we will leave the people free before, let's say. And I would like at this point to announce you the best papers that we had during this ALife 2022 conference. So in the specific, I would like to remember you that we had a double-blind process this year, and it was the first year of double-blind. And we choose the best paper and the best student paper, starting from the list of scores and votes that we had on EasyChair. So the best paper of ALife 2022 is 88 from Olaf Witowski and Eric Schwitzgebel. Ethics of Artificial Life, the Moral Status of Life as it Could Be. So to the authors, if they would like to say something.
Well, wow, yeah, thanks so much. This is fantastic. I really loved working on this paper with Eric Schwitzgebel, who is not here right now, but we really deeply appreciate this award, and also very importantly, all the feedback we got from people from the field before and after presenting the paper, and especially at the workshop we had yesterday. It was amazing to have this discussion. We're really encouraged to follow up on this, to develop the ethical component of ALife further, and we'll be organizing things. I want to add that we are really like the great contributions also of ALife in Society that is doing great job as a group, and also the DI committee, other people, right? We are not the only initiative in there. But yeah, thank you so much. We deeply appreciate that.
Thank you, Olaf, and congrats again. And yeah, it was really the highest and best course we had. And then we would like at this point to announce the best ALife 22 student paper, that this was 127 by Kira Breithaupt and Abi Leite. It was analogical comparison of circuits generating a multiple realizable walking behavior. I'm not sure if Kira could have be able to be here because she already had problems to present her paper previously, but maybe Abi is here.
Hi, yes. Well,
yes.
I'm shocked. This is an outstanding honor. I am so grateful. I also want to mention I'm very, very grateful for all of Kira's contributions, for all of our advisors' contributions, and particularly, we really valued the feedback that we got from the reviewers on this paper. It was really outstanding feedback. So this is such an honor. Thank you.
You're welcome. So at this point, I would like to announce for ALife 2023. And the organizer and chair of ALife 2023 will be Hiro Izuka, and the conference will be held in Sapporo. So Hiro, if you maybe would like to say something about the 2023 conference, feel free.
Yep. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes,
okay.
We can see your screen.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Hiro Izuka from Hokkaido University, Japan. And then give me 5 minutes. And the 2023 conference on artificial life will be held in Sapporo, Japan. The tentative plan, it is from July 24th to 28th. And as usual, it is going to be a full week conference. And then just let me explain about the conference theme. And our conference theme is the ghost in the machine. And artificial life seeks to unravel the mysteries of life and mind. And those are as elusive as ghosts, and it is difficult to find or even just define. But to capture the ghost, research in ALife and other fields has more focus on the studies of complexity, emergence, agency, autonomy, and information theory. And on the other hand, to make the ghost, embodied cognitive science and robotics, artificial intelligence and synthetic biology have developed to make ghosts. And then these research breakthroughs are very impressive. But we somehow try to avoid, I feel we somehow try to avoid touching the ghost of life and mind directly. And we believe that now it is time to stop running away from this ghost and face it. And then thanks to the new technology of brain-machine interface, cyborgization, and virtual or augmented reality and metaverse, the boundaries between the human or living system and the environment began fluctuating, and the mind could be extending beyond the spatial boundaries. And the mind or life is no longer in our shell, and mind is coming out into the real world and might become a new form of extended mind. So this might be a good chance to capture the mind. So ALife is a unique place to study ghosts, and we would like to bring back the focus on the integration of philosophy of mind with theoretical computation and empirical works in science and engineering, tackling the ghost in both artificial and natural life forms at ALife 2023. And then we will have ALife 2023 conference in a hybrid style of online and offline formats. And all ALife people know that the importance of the physicality to induce the open-ended evolution. And for the past couple of years, we have been living in a digital world with the online technology. It is like a simulation of the limited world. And everybody happy with the convenience of the online format, but feel somewhat squeezed in the digital world. So it's time to go back to the real world and getting everyone together and discussing face-to-face. But we just not simply return to the previous state, but seek a new form that integrates with online. And then we are going to realize now open-ended ALife conference with a new hybrid style. How? At the moment, I have no idea. I don't know how to do it, but we have strong 10 organizers at the moment. And general chair is me, Hiro Izuka, and vice chairs, Keisuke. And from Japan, Reiji, Manuel, and Ryoko. And from the UK, Miguel, and Nadine, and Katie. From Italy, Luisa, and Eduardo from US. So we will organize the conference, right? And also behind us, we have a chain center for Center for Human Nature, Artificial Intelligence, and Neuroscience, which opened 3 years ago at the Hokkaido University. The chain attempts to establish a platform for cutting-edge research and education at the intersection of humanities and social sciences, brain sciences, and artificial intelligence. And then our target is the self and consciousness, sociality, and the rationality. So I'm sure that we can stimulate each other very strongly. And it's really interdisciplinary research group. And those are the philosophers and the psychologists and the neurophysiologists, the computational neuroscience, and AI and ALife. And then where is Sapporo? Some of you may not know where Sapporo is, but Sapporo is the 5th largest city in Japan. And there are 2 million people, and Sapporo is located in the north of Japan. And in summer, it is the most comfortable place in Japan. And the nearest airport is the New Chitose Airport. And then the Hokkaido University is here, and then university is located near the Sapporo main station. It's walking distance. And then this is the Hokkaido University, and the conference will be here. It's very close, and it's convenient. And the Hokkaido University, that's fine. And then Sapporo is famous with the beer. And then we have a lot of big downtown, and we have lots of izakaya style restaurants for socializing. And near Sapporo City, we have a hot spring, the national parks, and there are lots of outdoor activities as well, like this. Yep. And then, finally, I have to say that let me explain about the current situation of COVID-19 in Japan. Actually, foreigners can enter Japan right now, but need a visa. So we need to register you on Japanese system, and then you need to apply. And then we send a document, and then you need to apply for the visa in your country. So if the situation doesn't change, the submission and review and notification schedule might be set up earlier than usual. So we need a time for the visa. And then so it's unlikely to extend the deadline of submission because of that. And then it's likely to request for the short-term review. But don't be afraid that if the situation doesn't change, but the Japan is now opening the country. So I think it's okay. But all the new information will be updated on the webpage, but which is not launched yet. But the webpage sure will be launched shortly. So that's it. Thank you so much, and see you all in Sapporo 2023. Thank you. Yep,
Thank you, Hiro. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation of ALife 2023. At this point, I would like to announce even the chair and organizer of ALife 2024, that is Catherine Walker. Catherine, would you like to say something?
Yeah, hi everybody. So obviously this is 2 years ahead, but we're hoping to welcome you all to Copenhagen in 2024 at the IT University. So you'll get to hear more details in the coming year or so, but yeah, super excited to see you there in 2 years' time.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you. So I think we finished all the announcements that all the awards were given. So we can announce the closing of the ALife 2022. I hope that everybody liked the conference, that enjoyed all the talks and all the sessions, and see you at ALife 2023 in Sapporo. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, and see you the next
Thank you again, Sylvia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to all ISL, of course.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.